So this technical deep dive is really how do you self-host your own LLM? And the goal is not to give everybody the capability to run frontier models. You're not going to be able to do that. Why? Because number one, you don't have enough money to pay for enough GPUs. And also, I'm going to show you everything in DigitalOcean, not in AWS or GCP or Azure, because I like DigitalOcean better. Not because they have all the best stuff, but because I want to show folks how to do it with commodity stuff that you can do for 50 bucks a month, right? And not have to go out and and have pretty good, token throughput, 30 tokens per second, something, 15 to 30 tokens per second, something like this. So that's the goal. I'm not gonna say here's how you build a eight H500 clusters so that you can run the full DeepSeek 4.0, max or whatever it is. We might get there by the end of the month, but ultimately, I'm just showing you how to do the basics. And so, why would you want to do this at all? I mean, the number one thing I like about it is the privacy and vendor lock stuff. It's not necessarily always cheaper. You can use a free plan of DeepSeek and get a lot of benefit out of that for free. But what you don't have is you don't have, oh no, now I don't have access to the service. I don't have access to the internet. How do I utilize this? So for me, cost control is just a portion of it. It may be a huge reason for a lot of people, but when you're paying for that infrastructure, you have to have people who know how to do it. I've been doing it a long time, so it doesn't really cost me. It doesn't feel like it costs me anything to spin this stuff up. So not as big of a factor for me, but for a lot of people, it may be a massive factor because they're spending tens of thousands of dollars on this stuff, and they could be utilizing local, smaller models instead for simpler things. The trade-off here, and I'm a little bit in the way, but the trade-off here is you are giving up frontier capability for queries that you put through your own self-host stuff. And you're going to have some operations burden. Though the version that I'm showing here is a very small, it's basically GPT 3.5 level capability. The goal was 10 tokens per second. I was able to get a little bit higher than that earlier, which is great. It's not GPT-4. Now you can get there, but again, that's not what we're hosting. The goal is to show you the architecture, the ownership, and how you do the contract. And so right here is kind of everything you need to know to install this. Now, I don't actually like the what is 2 plus 2. I like the what color is the sun. But ultimately, we're trying to verify that this thing works. And so what I'm going to show you is a very basic setup. It's on DigitalOcean, the basic droplet. It's like $48 to $50 a month. You need 8 gigs of RAM, 4 virtual CPUs, reasonably sized storage, and you're running Ubuntu. This is Linux, okay? And so I'm not going to show you how to do every single setup other than to show you that this is how you do it, but I'll pull up my build and we'll walk through it. And so if you're gonna start somewhere, I suggest you start with, like I said, DigitalOcean. So here's my account. Um, and again, it's going to be a little bit slower given that we are hosting or sorry, streaming, and I don't have a big computer I'm streaming on. But I have this local LLM running. I have these other ones for my specific, like I have my own agentic systems that I run with all the time, and they're running here. And you can see these are on really small instances. In fact, the biggest instance I have is this local LLM instance. And so if I click on the local LLM instance, it is running. I've had it running for about the last hour just because I wanted to stay warm. And you can see the costs here, right? But this is really simple. You just create a droplet like this wherever you want, and now you're up and running. So if you pop into the web console, and this is the way I often use them, just so I don't have to use my local. I don't have to remote in. It's more secure. I just use this one. Um, but I'm going to open two here. So here's one, and we're gonna basically do everything command line through this one. And then actually I don't, I'll be up to you if you want me to show the actual back end running on the service or not. So here we are, and let's just see if this thing is running. So it's just a regular, I'm asking for the Olama server basically presenting itself. So in order to tell if Olama servers are running, you just go to this URL and it will tell you. Yeah, it looks like it probably will. Yeah, Olama is running. Okay, so I finally got it back. It was slow, but this is what I want to see. I want to see effectively it is up and running, and that's there. Okay, if I want to be able, oh, excuse me. Okay, so that's good. So we know we're up and running. Now that's after we have done this. So you have to SSH into your droplet. Then you're going to install all of this. Then you're going to create the service, right? Then you're going to pull the model and all this kind of stuff. And so where I'm showing you that we're set up is in this section. So Olama has been installed on that droplet using these commands. I was able to serve the web host, right? And I don't show you the installation of Quinn, but I'll show you that it is installed through the next couple of commands. So let's go back to our excruciatingly slow terminal and just see what we've got running. So Olama list. All right, so there we go. So you see we've got Quinn 3 point, or sorry, excuse me, Quinn 3.6b parameters. So there it is. There's a hash. And you can see I installed it about 7 hours ago. So there it is. It's up and running. We know that the web service is running. All right. We've done all that installation. And now what I did was I built a really simple web application. Remember we were talking about HTML? Well, here you go. So very simple inline CSS and JS at the bottom. Very simple web application, and really all it does is, oh, I lost my notes. But really, I think it was line 307. Let's see, or no, sorry, 320. But really, this is everything here, right? And so this is our JSON object that we're posting through our web interface that looks exactly like an API that you would expect. So the API that OpenAI built, that naming convention, the V1/chat completions, that is the kind of nomenclature now. Olama uses it. Everybody uses it. That's the kind of API pathway. And so that body, model, messages, that is all necessary in this. So really all I'm showing you is that I had to create an interface, and that interface is here as Olama chat. Okay, and so this is what I just showed you is the HTML. I know I'm running Quinn 3 at the zero point 0.6 billion parameter level. Because I know my IP address and my port that I put in before, see this right here, 11434, that's to serve that onto whatever bare IP I have that I'm using. Then I can just throw that in as my endpoint. I know that's my model. And now let's see if it'll work. So I always like to ask, what color is the sun? And let's see if it works. Okay, so the fact that it's blinking tells me that my service, my Olama service, is actually functioning. Otherwise, I would get a 400 or a 405 or a 500. I can check this by running a tail on it in a separate console. I leave that up to the viewer to do on their own. This will run again. This is not super fast, right? Remember, this is commodity CPU response. If I ask it a goofy question like how many, we could try the strawberry question, right? And see what it does. I don't even remember how Quinn does on that. But you get the idea in the sense of there it is. We know it's working. It's working as a chatbot. What I can do is I can also prove that it works as a endpoint for an API. So I'll just go back to my running console. I'm going to copy my curl for the same thing, right? Because it's just curling local more or less, or not local, but to my DO droplet. And then same thing in here. What color is the sun? That's my content that's in this. I don't set role or user because I don't need to at this point. And so I'm just going to put this in here. And again, the goal here is not to show you anything new. It's to show you that you can do everything you need to do either as an API call locally, just like you would any other API from OpenAI or wherever, right? Or you can make a web interface like I did with a very simple web application. Here you see, move out of my way here. But you can see here, it's actually a different response, right? Different response, same thing. One of the cool things is it gives you the token count and everything that you want, how many prompt tokens, how many completion tokens, these types. So there's a lot more here if you want to start investigating it and really digging into what you can do. But That was the majority of that, technical piece. I'm not really sure. I guess the last thing we can do is I'm going to talk through kind of the anatomy of these APIs. So if you look at the curl I just did, this API call, it when I say your URL, that's your IP address for whatever you're hosting that Olama model towards, as well as that port with that same nomenclature. Now, interestingly, you could do the same thing with your OpenAI API router URL. And it's the same thing. How you instrument this is ultimately your role in your development. So you actually have to say, okay, what model am I serving? Do I need roles? Do I need users? What's the content? So there's a lot more to this, right, that you can put in, and this is effectively where all those big wrappers live. They live in that API land, and these become really large, and that's where that prompt injection is really important because then you can pull files into it, you can pull them out. There's a lot of things you can do with it. But ultimately, when we're looking at how to break that down, you've got the URL, URI, depending on how you want to call it, with what effectively you're calling. This is an interesting one because, V1 is a nomenclature that, again, this is kind of common. It's common now for MCP servers and the rest. If that changes, it's going to break everything. Think back to the last, early part of the hour. We're talking about consistency in contracts and naming conventions for schemas. If OpenAI changes that and you don't catch it because you didn't update your API and they switch to some kind of new version increment, all your stuff's going to break. So it's really important to understand that. Like the capability piece of it, again, this is a nomenclature that is starting to form, right? Kind of like Robert was talking about with, hey, markdown files are now starting to kind of move. People are starting to move to HTML files, these kind of transportation formats for all this kind of stuff. This is going to change too, just like these API binding conventions. So embeddings, images, all that stuff, expect it to expand, and on and on and on. So the idea here is I can't teach you everything you're ever going to want to need to know about the API, but I can teach you enough to know that this is what's really important to dig in on if you're going to self-host. And uh, you know, to me this is I don't it can't get easier, like in the sense of if you want to be able to do this on your own, you're effectively just installing another package and running it. And so I see very few downsides to organizations starting to play with this because you're just going to start utilizing more and more of your own infrastructure, and ultimately, uh, the models themselves are going to get good enough. There's a good enough point, right? And I just wrote an article about this, but there's this point of good enough, right, where I don't need any further foundation models. I know for a fact that if I can run DeepSeek 4 Max, I can do almost everything I need to do if I pair it with Quinn, like the largest Quinn, and some of the larger Llama models. So ensembling of models, having model routing for context and ontologies, these are going to be where you get really powerful for on-prem hosting and understanding how do you build it yourself.